It is our amazing honor to have with us today someone who probably knows the history of this relationship better than anyone in the world. Deputy Prime Minister Michael Oren has been a statesman for the State of Israel, serving as ambassador to the U.S. between 2009 and 2013. He holds a PhD in history from Princeton University. And his book, Power, Faith, and Fantasy, is the definitive work explaining the history of this place through the lenses of faith. When he served as ambassador in America, his office door was always open, his phone was always available. He consistently understood the vital importance not only of the American evangelical connection to Israel, but the global evangelical connection to Israel. Ambassador Oren, now Deputy Prime Minister Oren, is an esteemed statesman, an honorable man of incredible integrity, whose words have value and weight and substance, and we are amazingly humbled and honored to welcome him here today. Would you welcome Deputy Prime Minister Michael Oren?
That's bad. Shalom, shalom, shalom. Shalom to all my friends, to Josh Renstein and the United Christian Allies for Israel. Shalom to David Parsons and the International Christian Embassy here, to the extraordinary Hatzalah organization, Mark Gerson, Ari Berry, to everyone, but especially shalom to my dear friend and inspiration, Bishop Robert Stearns. Thank you. The man who makes me cry every time he sings. Really, not fair, not fair. So Bishop Stearns mentioned my appreciation, and I think that's an understatement, my love for the believing, faith-driven community, not just in the United States, but worldwide, and their connection to this country. Where did it come from? 40 years ago, a good biblical number, 40 years ago, almost to the date, I moved to this city. I moved to a neighborhood right over there. This was my backyard. Imagine having that. But it wasn't always my backyard. I came from a different backyard, a small town in the United States. You know what they look like. And down the street from where I lived, there was a Baptist church. Now, a couple weeks ago, I went to visit my parents living in the same house where I grew up. But the Baptist church isn't there anymore. They knocked it down, and they put up a bank. And I was distraught, because that Baptist church had a profound, profound meaning for me. When I was a young man, and I know you're going to identify with this, I went through a spiritual journey. Raised in a Jewish family, but I had no Jewish learning. I wanted to know what it meant to be a Jew. So I went and found a rabbi to teach me Torah, to teach me Talmud, but I was also fascinated with Jewish history, and I wanted to read any book that would teach me more about my people's history. And that is when I discovered a different book, which you call the New Testament. Who was going to teach me the New Testament? It was going to be my rabbi. So one day, I was a rather precocious kid. I went and knocked on the door of the Baptist church, and who enters but Reverend Pastor Miller. Charismatic, young, blonde. I said, listen, I want to learn the New Testament. Will you teach me the New Testament? But there's one catch. You can't convert me. He said, okay. So for 1 year, 1 day a week, I would go into the Baptist church at the end of my neighborhood, and I did what they call in Hebrew a shiur on the New Testament. I read the entire book. And what did I discover there? I discovered a beautiful story written by proud Jews in their own land who believed in the God of Israel. And what this story told me, the way it spoke to me, was that when Jesus, a man from Nazareth in Galilee, came to that hill and looked down on the city and said, "Oh, Jerusalem, if only I could gather your children under my wings, the way a chicken would gather her little hens. If only I could do that." That's a Jewish sentence. When he stood on top of that hill and he said a Hebrew prayer, and you can hear the Hebrew, Avi Shebashamayim, Kadosh Shimcha. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. It comes the Hebrew, you can hear it in the English. The Hebrew and the English. And yes, when he was on the cross and he said, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. It's my language. God, only speaks one language. I don't want to offend anybody who speaks English. As far as we know, one language. I'm sure he understands them all, but he speaks only one. Profoundly moved was I by this story. Proud Jews living in their land, believing in the God of Israel. Yes, we took away different interpretations of that story, but it's a Jewish story. It's part of our tradition. And today, friends, today in the world, there are people who want to take away that tradition from us. They want to attack that tradition. They want to deny that tradition. They want to say there was never a temple on that mount. There were never steps on which Jesus taught. None of that is true. There are people in the world today who would define Mary, Joseph, John the Baptist, again, proud Jews living in the land of Israel. They would define them as illegal settlers. Illegal settlers living in Bethlehem, living in Jericho, Jews, illegal settlers. So today we are commanded. We, Jews, Christians alike, are commanded to stand together, to defend our common faith, to defend our common tradition, our memory, our history, our love for this country, this land, this people. Today, 50 years plus after the reunification of this city, 70 years after the rebirth of Jewish sovereignty in the land of Israel, today, when I join with you on this international prayer for Jerusalem, we stand together to defend, to pray, to have faith in that which is ours and which nobody can take away from us. Nobody way. Not even that bank where they put in the place of the Baptist church. Reverend Miller, that church lives on right here in this city with all of you. I have the ultimate honor, Robert, really. I get to be a person who moved from that little town to be here with you today and be an elected representative of the first Jewish government in a sovereign Jewish state in 2,000 years. And I get the ultimate honor of saying that in the name of that government, in the name of our people, in the name of our state, to each and every one of you, Toda Rabah, thank you. May God bless you. Toda.